So, what would the first couple of weeks of a major new war actually look like? Well, today, we're going to dive into that exact question. We're breaking down a detailed documentary script that lays out a hypothetical conflict with Iran set in 2026. Let's get right into the key events and the immediate massive fallout. The conflict, according to our source material, kicks off with just overwhelming force. In the first 12 hours alone, we're talking about a staggering 900 strikes by the United States and Israel. I mean, think about that for a second. That's more than one strike every single minute, hitting targets all across Iran.
In Iran's response, it was fast and it was big. The source document details this massive retaliatory wave, which it calls Operation True Promise 4. This wasn't just a few rockets. We're talking over 420 missiles and drones launched. And not just at one country, but at targets spread across 9 different nations. And of course, with that level of violence, the human cost began to spiral almost immediately. The document we're looking at cites figures from the Iranian Red Crescent, reporting over 1,444 confirmed civilian deaths. And that's just within the first 2 weeks of fighting.
Okay, so how did all this get started? The offensive, codenamed Operation Epic Fury, was launched on February 28, 2026, and the source describes it as the largest U.S. offensive military operation since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. So right from the get-go, this was setting the stage for something huge.
Now, here's a really critical detail from the source. The explicit goal wasn't just about taking out military bases or nuclear sites. A central objective right from the start was regime decapitation. In other words, the targeted killing of Iran's absolute highest political and military leaders.
And the source claims these strikes hit their mark. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, who had been in power for 36 years, was reportedly killed. Along with him, the defense minister, the commander of the powerful IRGC, and the chief of staff of the armed forces were all said to be eliminated in that first wave.
So, with its top leadership in absolute chaos, Iran's military response wasn't just a simple punchback. It was a broad, strategic counterattack that very quickly dragged the entire region right into the middle of the fight.
Yeah, Iran's retaliation, as it's laid out in the source, was really designed to cause maximum chaos. Those 420-plus missiles and drones didn't just aim for Israel. They fanned out across the region, hitting 9 different countries that the source claims were hosting or helping with the initial attacks.
And the targets they chose were incredibly strategic. The source specifically points to hits on Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. That's the largest U.S. military base in the entire Middle East. It also details strikes on the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait and the absolutely massive Ras Tanura oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. And just when you think it couldn't get more complicated, it did. The conflict didn't stay contained. According to the source, just 2 days in, Hezbollah jumps into the fight from Lebanon. And just like that, this is no longer a direct confrontation, it's a multi-front war, which makes everything exponentially more dangerous for everyone involved.
So, beyond all the military moves and the strategic chess match, the source material spends a lot of time on the devastating impact on civilians and on the global economy. The ripple effects here spread way beyond the battlefield.
The source really zooms in on one incident to make its point, an airstrike that hit the Shajar-e-Tayyiba school in the city of Minab on the very first day of the war. The aftermath, as it's described in the documentary script, was just horrific. The strike on that school, it says, resulted in the deaths of 165 children. And the international reaction cited in the source was, as you'd expect, one of total shock. UNESCO is quoted directly as calling the attack a grave violation of humanitarian law, reflecting this wave of global condemnation. The economic shockwave was felt almost instantly. The source points to Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the most critical shipping choke points on the planet. This one move caused oil prices to just skyrocket, jumping from around $75 a barrel to over $100 in a matter of days. And the disruption didn't stop with oil. Our source material notes that major international hubs like Dubai's airport suspended operations. Cargo ships were forced to reroute all the way around Africa, which adds weeks and literally billions of dollars to global supply chains. The whole system got thrown into chaos.
So, the big question is, how did things get this bad? Well, the source argues this war didn't just appear out of nowhere on February 28th. It actually lays out a long history of rising tensions that led directly to those first strikes.
According to the source, you can basically trace the path to war through several key moments. It really starts with the 2015 JCPOA nuclear deal. Then you have the U.S. pulling out of that deal in 2018. Then there's a smaller but still intense 12-day war in 2025. And finally, a last-ditch round of diplomatic talks in Oman that failed just days before the invasion.
And this is one of the most fascinating points in the whole source material, these totally conflicting stories from the final hours of diplomacy. The document presents two sides. You have Oman's foreign minister on record saying that a peace deal had been reached, and then you have the U.S. claiming that no, Iran had actually rejected the final terms. It just raises this huge question. Was war truly unavoidable, or was a peace deal somehow sabotaged at the very last second?
All right, let's wrap this up by looking at the state of play as of March 15, 2026. So, 16 days into this hypothetical war, where do things stand, according to the analysis in the source? While the document raises a really critical strategic issue for the U.S. and Israel, something it calls the interceptor depletion problem. The alleged Iranian strategy is to use wave after wave of cheap, low-tech drones and missiles for one reason: to force the West to use up its limited supply of extremely expensive, high-tech air defense missiles that just can't be replaced quickly. And this is probably the most crucial takeaway. After 2 solid weeks of relentless bombing, and even after the assassination of their top leader, the source assesses that Iran's core military command is still up and running. And maybe more importantly, its most heavily fortified nuclear material is probably still secure and intact. And so we end where the source does, with a really fundamental question. The script makes the argument that nations that are attacked often come out of it more determined to fight, not less. And it leaves us all to think about maybe the most difficult question of all. In a cycle of violence like this, how does it ever actually end?